In this video, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to create a spreadsheet to enter data for reading your electric meter. I'll show you how to enter things like dates, static numbers, that is numbers that don't change, and dynamic formulas, numbers that do change. So first, let's set up our spreadsheet. What I've done is in Numbers, I have opened up a blank spreadsheet. You'll see that it has some gray columns down the side and gray columns across the top. There's nothing special about those other than they're colored in gray, and typically we'll use those to capture headings. So in this first column, we're going to enter the date. So I'm just going to type in date. And what we need to do here is enter the dates that you first read your electric meter. This was in your initial workflow before you made any changes to your behavior in order to conserve electricity. So let's say that the first date that you recorded anything here was on the 24th of January. So I type this date in as 1/24/13. When I enter, notice that Numbers automatically changes that date into this particular format, Jan 24, 2013, which is a fine thing. That's okay. I can take that date and notice that if I grab the corner of it as I pull it down, what happens is Numbers automatically adds a day every time that I do this. So if I read my meter from January 24th to January 31st, those are the dates that I would enter. The next column that I need then is the actual meter reading. And so here what I could enter is the numbers that I saw on my electric meter. And this is where you're going to have to enter the specific data that's from your sheet. For the purposes of showing you how this sheet works, I'm going to go ahead and enter some data in here. So let's say the first time that I read my meter, the reading was 3,602, and then I was at 3612, and then I was at 3625, and then the next one I was at 3660, and then I was at 3675, and then I was at 3703, maybe I was at 3740, and then the last one would have been 3759. So maybe those were the specific meter readings. The next column, and this is something that you calculated using a simple subtraction problem, was where you calculated the total kilowatt hours used a day. And if you recall, we had to do a subtraction problem for this. And we started by figuring out between January 24th and January 25th, so from this date to this date, how much electricity did we use? And the math problem that we did to calculate that was we took the reading on the 25th, which was the higher number, and subtracted off the reading on the 24th. I can create a formula in Numbers. And to do that, the first thing I have to do is hit the equal sign. Notice when I hit the equal sign, this little formula bar pops up. And what I'm going to do is instead of typing in the numbers that are here again, I'm just going to select the cells. So I'm going to select this one first. So I select the meter reading for January 25th, and then I type the minus symbol, and then I select the meter reading for January 24th. So I don't have to retype those numbers in. I can simply tell the computer, take the value that's in this box, the one shown in blue, and subtract the value from the box above it, and enter. So it did the subtraction for me. 3612 minus 3602 is 10. The really cool thing about Numbers, I can take this formula and I can grab the little corner of it, and if I take this formula and I stretch this formula down, I pull it down in this table, what it's going to do is it's actually going to repeat the formula, but it's going to index it down by a line each time. So let's take a look at what ended up in this particular box here. I just picked this box at random, and notice that this box is taking the difference of the day that's right next to it minus the day before it. So now Numbers has created for me a simple table that has the total kilowatt hours used each day for the days that I read my meter. This is a good way to double check the math that you've already done on your paper sheet. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to know something about this column of data. So this is the kilowatt hours I used over a period of days. Notice that when I select all of those entries, down below here, the sum, average, minimum, maximum, and count, that those all pop some numbers into them. Sum just means if I add together all of those numbers, how many kilowatt hours did I use in total during those days? I used a total of 157 kilowatt hours. I can grab this sum and I can drag it up and put it perhaps down here. What I like to do is to put some labels next to each of these. So I might write this as the total for January 24th through January 31st. Just so that I know what this 157 actually represents. That's the total kilowatt hours that were used. I'd also like to know, for this, what was the average kilowatt hours per day that I spent. So I click on average, and I drag this up here. Now, there's a whole lot of decimals, and I don't particularly need to see nearly that many decimals. That's more precise than I really want to be in this. So up above, you'll see there's a little box that has a 0.0 and some arrows. I can click this over until I get a more reasonable number of decimal places showing. And then I can label this as average kilowatt hours per day. So it looks like on average I use 22.4 kilowatt hours per day. Again, I can select this data, minimum. So that's the lowest of them. So the least number of kilowatt hours used in one day was 10. If I select this again, I can pick the max here. And I can say the most kilowatt hours used in one day. So now I have some interesting data that I can use to analyze the usage that I have for electricity. I find my total, my average per day, my lowest day, and my highest day. That's some good information to have. What you're going to do now is pause this presentation, and in Moodle you'll see that I've created a template for you that already has these headings, the date, the meter reading, and the total kilowatt hours per day. And you're going to go in and enter the dates that you read your meter. You're going to enter the readings that you had. And then you're going to enter the formulas to calculate the total kilowatt hours used per day, as well as these statistics down below. When you're done creating that, there's a second presentation that you'll watch to see how to turn this data into a chart.